What's up, everybody? I'm Clayton. Welcome back to my movie review channel, and today we're reviewing Jaws, son. Let's kick it. It's horror month. All month long, you're going to be getting horror films reviewed, and yes, Jaws is a horror film. I will not tolerate any argument otherwise. I've had this discussion with many people over the years who want to argue that Jaws is action, drama, adventure, everything but horror. Listen, a killer shark eating people is horrifying. There's a literal scene in the movie where you watch a guy get eaten and devoured by a shark. That qualifies as a horror film, all right? On the front poster, this poster right here, can you read what's on there? The original movie cover says a terrifying movie. Pretty sure that classifies as a horror film. That's what this movie is. It may not be your typical horror film, but then again, neither is Psycho. And yet, Psycho is a horror film. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be a slasher film or demonic possession film to be horror. If something is going around killing people, that's a horror. All right. So, yes, Jaws is a proper horror film. I will argue that to my grave, and we're about to review it. So, get out of the water. If you're swimming, you're paddling around, floating somewhere, I don't know, in a pool or a lake or a river, or if you're one of those crazy people out there that likes to swim in the ocean, get out of the water because you're gonna have a shark coming at you. Yeah, let's get into it, break it down, and I will give my overall rating and thoughts of this film. Guys, I love this film. It is not just one of my favorite horror films of all time. It's one of my favorite films of all time. This is an absolute classic. It belongs at the top of everyone's list for favorite films, best films, whatever. It deserves to be in there. That's how good Jaws is. So, Steven Spielberg directed this movie in 1975 when it was released. Fun fact about Jaws, this was the first real blockbuster in American cinema. When this film came out, there were literal lines around the theaters throughout the country, around just the parking lot and everything. It was the first time anything like that had happened before. Now, 2 years later, Star Wars would come out in 1977 and blow Jaws out of the water, no pun intended, but when Jaws came out in 1975, it was the first real blockbuster and was the highest grossing film at that time. So, yeah, that completely put Steven Spielberg on the map and projected his career way upwards. So, yeah, it had a huge impact both commercially and critically. It was a success. So Steven Spielberg really solidified himself and his place in Hollywood with this film. But getting into the positives with Jaws, which is pretty much everything. One of the first things that come to my mind when I think about this movie, Roy Scheider as Chief Brody in this movie he's fantastic. And I haven't seen too much of Roy Scheider's work, but it'd be hard for me to believe that he could have a better film in his career than Jaws. So I think if there was something better in his career than Jaws, I feel like I would have seen it by now, and I haven't seen anything that even comes close to Jaws from Roy Scheider. So yeah, he is a talented actor. I think he is a good actor. He's not, an all-time great. If there was a acting Hall of Fame, he wouldn't be in there probably. But he does a good job here, and I think a lot of that is on Steven Spielberg and his directing. Spielberg has always done an exceptional job directing his actors and getting the performance that he wants out of his actors. I mean, look at you just pull up any Steven Spielberg film, and there will be actors in those films that their best work of their career is with Steven Spielberg. And when directors do that, when you have a single director who has a number of actors give their best performances of their career with that director, that says something about the director and how good they are as a filmmaker and directing acting. Part of being a great director is directing your actors. It's not just about the camera, how you shoot the film. It's not just about how you direct the score or the production design. Part of being a great director is also directing your actors and getting the best performances you can out of them for the film that you're making. And Steven Spielberg, I believe, gets the best performance of two out of his three lead actors, Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss. I would say this is Richard Dreyfuss has some bangers in his career, but I think Jaws is up there among the best in his career. But Robert Shaw as well, I think this is his best work. So yeah, a lot of credit's got to go to Spielberg for directing his actors in this film and getting the performances out of them that he wanted for this film and that the film needed. And for Roy Scheider being really the lead cast member in this film, he's the one that has to carry this movie. The film is on his shoulders. He's got to step up and lead well, and he does. You buy into his character from the beginning, when you're first introduced to him in his home there at Amity Island with his wife and his kids. You buy into that character, and you're invested all the way through to the end. So yeah, I thought that Scheider did a great job leading this film and leading the charge in this movie against the shark. So yeah, I love Roy Scheider in this film. Richard Dreyfuss is fantastic. I think this was his first real breakout performance as well, breakout role. Does a great job as kind of the shark expert, so to speak, from the Oceanographic Institute. He's the one. He's kind of the voice of reason and the one that's really level-headed here. And if there's anyone that's really cerebral when it comes to dealing with sharks, it's Dreyfuss's character in this movie. So Hooper is his character, and Hooper is probably my favorite character in this movie, although I do really love Chief Brody by Roy Scheider. But if I had to pick one character in here that was my favorite, it would probably be Hooper if I was forced to pick. So yeah, really liked Hooper a lot in this movie. And then Robert Shaw as Quint, as the fisherman. He's the guy that is getting paid to go catch the shark and kill it and bring it in. So I thought he does a really great job playing his role too. The acting across the board in Jaws is phenomenal. I mean, even the other more supporting roles and the more minor roles in this one, like Lorraine Gary, who plays Mrs. Brody, Chief Brody's wife. I thought she did a really good job. I thought she had really good chemistry with Roy Scheider, and I believed them, and their chemistry felt natural and real. I thought they played well together. And Murray Hamilton as the mayor, I thought was really good. He plays that just low life scumbag of a mayor that you just, a typical politician that you just infuriates you. You don't believe anything that he's saying. You know, he's completely full of himself, full of dog poo-poo, and claims to have the citizens' best interest, but his actions prove that he really doesn't. And he really only has his own best interest in mind, like a typical politician. So, yeah, I thought he played it really close to the chest, and I really bought into his performance. So he does a good job too. But let's all be honest with ourselves. When we're talking about Jaws, the best performance out of anybody, by far, and it's not even close, is the shark. That shark was so believable as a great white, I actually thought it was. That is method acting 101. He deserved an Oscar. I'm just going to say that. That shark deserved an Oscar for that performance. All right. I couldn't play a great white shark that well. I don't think any of you could play a great white shark that well. No offense. That shark played a great white perfectly. So major props to that shark and his incredible performance. One of the all-time greats in cinema. Moving right along to the directing, I've already kind of briefly mentioned part of the directing of Spielberg was in directing his actors, which he does a great job of. But the other elements and the other aspects of directing, I thought Spielberg did a great job at as well. One of the most iconic parts of Jaws is the score by John Williams. It's an iconic score, one of the most iconic and recognizable scores in horror history and film history. You can go on YouTube and watch, if you're watching this, you're on YouTube. But you can just watch people recognize this Jaws score, and they've never even seen the film, but they recognize that score. That's how iconic this score is. So great job by John Williams creating and composing that score. Very simple score. I mean, it's just a couple of beats. Doo-doo, 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 doo. It's simple. Simple score, but effective. And if you've been with my channel for any length of time, you've heard me say this ad nauseum. I'm going to say it again. The best movie scores are the ones that are effective. I want effective scores in my films. They don't get any more effective than the score for Jaws. So, yeah, great score, super iconic, and super effective for what it was going for in this film. So yeah, John Williams, 2 thumbs up for you, sir. But also the production design by Joe Alves, I thought was fantastic. When they built and crafted the stunt shark. Did I just say stunt shark? Do sharks actually have stuntmen now? That would be incredible. I want to volunteer for that. But yeah, the constructing the practical shark for the effect works in this film, and for the production design of the shark, I thought was, because there was nothing before that. There was nothing before this movie to go off of. How do you construct a 25-foot great white shark and you got nothing to go off of other than just actual pictures, and what they look like? But you can't look at any prior film to get an idea of how to do this. You're the first. And I just thought how well it looked and how well it turned out, it still holds up. I've seen movie reviewers watch this movie for the first time and they buy it. Keep in mind, this movie was released in 1975, almost 50 years ago. And yet the practical effects of the shark still hold up to this day. It still looks good. That's how incredible and ahead of its time Alves was in the construction of the shark, and the entire production design unit for this movie was extraordinary. So yeah, they've also got to get some major props, and it's one of my best positives with this film is just when you watch this movie and you just see this island that's constructed, and you have these fishermen spots, you have this town that's been constructed. A lot of it was on site, but they did build some practical set pieces as well for the film that just blend right in with the town. So yeah, I just thought the production design, both for the land and the island that they were on, but also the construction of the shark for this movie was absolutely extraordinary. And it's always a positive experience when I come to this movie. So yeah, big props there in the production design. The cinematography by Bill Butler was fantastic. I think he had a difficult job shooting the water scenes. Again, how many films before Jaws were shot extensively underwater or in water, period? Not very many. So again, Butler was doing something that very few had done at this point, didn't have a lot to go off of, and yet pulled it off, I thought, flawlessly. Some of the shots from under the water where you're getting a POV shot from the shark's perspective as it's swimming upward towards its next victim. Some of those shots are extraordinary, and just the way that they were able to pull that stuff off underwater or in water when the camera's just floating on the surface of the water to get some of those shots. The look and the composition, the lighting here, I thought was flawless. The shadowing was flawless. I just thought the cinematography and the look in this movie is so pleasing to the eye, and it's a very strong positive for me when I come to this movie. Spielberg always knows how to get really great cinematography in his movies, and Spielberg has a strong eye for good cinematographers and really talented DPs. And he always manages to get some of the best photographers that's out there for his movies. And Bill Butler in this one was no exception. His cinematography here is flawless. So that's a strong positive for me. And then in the writing, I think the story here is a really good story. And I don't really here people talk about the story of Jaws. They just look at this movie as, oh, it's just a three guys going out on the ocean trying to find and kill a shark. No, that's not the only thing this movie's about. Again, Chief Brody is our lead protagonist in this movie. That character's the character that we're following all the way through, and it's his story. And when we're introduced to him, we find out pretty early on that he has this fear of the water. And yet, as the film progresses and unfolds, we see Chief Brody stand up to that fear and embrace his fear and face his fear. Not only get into the water, but get on a boat in the water, in deep water, facing his fear in order to do what was right. He had the courage to face his fear. And that's always a beautiful story. When you have someone that you know the character is afraid of whatever it is that they're afraid of, and yet through their journey in the movie, they find the courage to face their fear. And that's something that we can all take out of this movie and learn from in life, is to face our fears. And Chief Brody does that. And by the end, he's the one, in spite of his lack of experience, in spite of his fear, in spite of his incompetence at some points, he's the one that actually kills the shark. He's the one that actually saves the day, because he was the one that faced his fear. So, yeah, and that story is a beautiful story to me. So I do really like the story here in Jaws, and the script I thought was well written. There's not really any plot holes in this movie. I think it's knitted together really well. I think it's handled well. I think the characters are very well written, and they definitely are flushed out. They're entertaining characters, and you're invested with them along the way. Each character brings something different to the film that the film needs, and there's no wasted characters. All the characters here are playing, have a role to play. They're serving a purpose to the film, and you got to respect that. So, and that's, again, I love a well-written script when I have characters that are meaningful characters that are playing, that actually have something to do. They actually have a role to play in the film and in the story. And all the characters here do that. So, and that's just another huge positive for me when I come to this movie, is the character writing for this film is very, very good. And the dialogue is exceptional as well. You have that great speech by Quint when the three of them are in the boat at night, and he's talking about the USS Indianapolis. True story, by the way. If you haven't looked into it, I'd highly recommend it. But just the way that Robert Shaw delivered his lines, the lines were very well written, but the way he delivered his lines and the way that Spielberg directed that scene, I thought was just, it's one of the best scenes in the movie. So, yeah, great dialogue writing, great character writing, great script writing, just great writing all around. So, yeah, love this movie, guys. I love it. But I will say, don't even think about trying to get your boy to go out in the ocean to go shark hunting. That's not happening. Okay, I'm just going to let you guys in on a little something about me. I have a very profound fear of chompers. Okay, a chomper is defined as anything that can chomp my face off. Sharks can chomp my face off. I don't do sharks. I don't do lions. Why don't I do lions? Because lions can chomp my face off. Tigers, bears, alligators, crocodiles, anything that can eat me, I am petrified of. I'll just tell you right now, if I was on that boat with those guys, I would be filling my drawers, son. I would be filling my drawers the entire time because I don't do sharks. Okay, so that may be another reason that I see this movie as a true horror film, because the idea and the reality of actually getting into the water with a 25-foot great whites is one of the most scariest things that I can think of. So yeah, this is a true horror film. Stop it. Stop trying to say this is just an adventure film, Clayton. Stop it. This is a horror film. It belongs on the horror list, the horror Mount Rushmore, or whatever you want to call it. It's a horror film. You're welcome. That's it. No negatives. This is a 5-star film for me. 5-star film. 10 out of 10. I love it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite horror films of all time. One of my favorite films of all time. It's a absolute masterpiece. Flawless in my opinion. Is it objectively perfect? No. I don't believe any film is objectively a perfect film. But subjectively, it is a perfect film to me. There's nothing about this movie that I would change. I love everything about it. It's a 5-star masterpiece, and it's one of the all-time greats. So there you go, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Jaws. Do you think it's a 5-star masterpiece? Are you afraid of sharks? Do you have a fear of chompers like I do? Let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to post other horror films you would like to see me review. Thank you for watching. And as always, until next time, kick it and rock on.